I have a quick update for you on the 3D Scrutiny project, and it came out literally today while I was at work, and it was an okay day until the afternoon where it kind of slowed down. And sometimes I like that when I have a bit of time where there's just no orders popping up, and it swings and roundabouts, as they say. But it was a great opportunity because it allowed me and Christina to work together on this logo, and particularly on the branding. And so the way this worked is just a nice, lovely little example of collaborative work on this project. And as it progresses, I think maybe this is a nice little story. I mean, we don't know where this is going, how successful it's going to be, but it'll definitely happen. And it's one of those projects that you want to put out there, and perhaps I'll just create a playlist and have entries of how this project came to be step by step. So this is one of those entries. In fact, the second one already. So here's what happened. After we thought about the domain and what's going to be on the site, the next question was, of course, what type of branding are we going to put on there? How are we going to do that? And we all clubbed together, Julia, Christina and I, and we all came from kind of different angles there, but it was clear that we needed a square logo as well as a banner type version. And so those are kind of the restrictions. You always need some kind of a square banner that certain websites then crop to a round thing, so that needs to look good both in square as well as round, and it also needs to look good on a dark background and a light background. So we've decided to go with a dark background, but we're only in charge of the background to a certain extent on the website, which is cool. But sometimes we may need, I'm just thinking ahead here, we may need something like a YouTube channel or a Facebook page or a Twitter account and all these things, and you're not always in charge of what their background is going to look like. So if you really want to tick both boxes, the logo needs to be good on a dark background as well as on a light background. So those were kind of the restrictions. That's one thing, was the square one, and the other one was kind of a banner type logo, something along the lines of whatever happens at the top of the website or as a banner like at the top of a Facebook page or YouTube channel and so forth. A banner that we know and love. Also a banner that we can give away so that people can link to this project. Thinking ahead and going forward. So out of that, we thought, well, how are we going to do this logo? And we all came up with ideas that I don't think we just brainstormed, and some of these ideas that come out, they just don't look very good, especially when you ask your brain to come up with something creative now. That's usually never a good idea. That never works. It's like trying to hit your head against the wall and hoping some creativity will fall out in the process. That's just usually not how it works. Quite the opposite. When you least think about it, when you're completely engulfed in something else, that's when your brain comes up with idea number 5 and 6 and 7 and 8. And so it was exactly like that with us. So we came about and had a look through some ideas, and we didn't like this and we didn't like that. Luckily I don't even remember them, but for this video I might just drag them out and see what iterations we went through, because it's interesting to look at the creative process behind that. For every yes, you have to have a certain amount of no's to come up with the right thing. You never just pull the right thing out of the hat that ticks all the boxes. So we went through these iterations until eventually we all liked something that Julia came up with, and I believe she made that in Canva. Julia is kind of a magician when it comes to creativity. She always has little tools that she produces things with, and we look at them, and us with a library of professional tools think, oh my god, how did you do that? And she uses things like apps on the iPhone that I've often not heard of, and I think this one was one that was called Canva, and it's one that you have to pay if you want to make a high resolution version, but you can usually get a lot of ideas of low resolution things, anything from book covers to many things really. I believe my first book, The Lamp Stack for Humans, I think she also did that with Canva, I believe. It's one of those things. So she came up with a design for a square logo that we thought, hey, this is actually nice. We can live with that. So that gave us the ground idea, and we did manage to get this out in high resolution out of the mobile application. And then of course, things got in the way, and as it goes, things get delayed. So, but eventually we got it out and thought, well, in this square thing, we should put the letters 3D and then Scrutiny somehow on the outside. Somehow, that was the original idea. And we played around with fonts, and nothing looked really good. We were thinking we were kind of onto something here, but it really isn't quite there yet. And as it goes, you try very hard to make it better at that moment, and of course it doesn't work. So we gave it a couple of days until today. Christina rebuilt several versions of that logo in Adobe Illustrator. So the advantage of Illustrator versus something like Canva is, of course, that Illustrator has vector ideas, whereas Canva or Photoshop would work with a rasterized image. So if ever we needed to have a really high resolution of such an image, then we're bound by how large the raster version of this thing is. So she recreated along the lines of what what Julia got out of Canva in Illustrator, and added some variations on the same theme to it. And not only in black and white, because that was the original idea, keep it black and white, it needs to look good, hard contrasty and all that. Christina also applied some colors, and she sent the group 6 versions in total, and I loved 2 of them immediately, and one of them in particular really stood out. And it's funny that both Christina and I were sitting there. I was kind of shopping, I was looking through these things, and Christina said, yeah, that is also my favorite, number 4. That was kind of both our favorite as a logo. And so we thought, oh great, let's just roll with that and see where else this is going, and see if and how we can apply a font to it. And it turned out the logo looked so good that we didn't need the letters 3D inside the logo anymore, because the logo now was so nice that it literally stood on its own. So we thought maybe we'll just go and leave the logo by itself and just put Scrutiny or 3D Scrutiny next to it. And Christina used a font that was kind of a generic font. I forgot which one it was. And we thought, yeah, we're almost there. The 3D had turned from white into blue, and we just took it from there. And the font wasn't exactly there yet, but that was just a matter of me and Christina having basically a break. Christina was working. She had a visit from her grandson as well, which was a nice surprise. He wants to be an in-store shopper for Instacart when he grows up. Whatever happened to fireman and astronaut and all these things? No, it's not quite what little kids want to do these days anymore. They want to be personal shoppers. Awesome, very good stuff. But then, that probably changes on a weekly basis. So we went through several iterations of fonts, and once again, you have to have a look at what's the most feasible way of doing this. So there are many fonts out there, but not every font will work out of the box for websites. So because ideally what you want to do is not have a rasterized logo at the top of your website. You want to have the browser render this in that font, and for that you can pull in something from, say, Google Fonts or any of the other online font resources. So you basically just link to that. The browser will then load the font data on demand, and the other added benefit of that is that every browser should do the same and render the same font. So back in the day you had a choice of like 4 or 5 or 6 fonts, and you had to provide several other versions and see how they rendered depending on what browser and what operating system you're using. So it's better today because you can just literally bring in the font right there in the CSS. And then it was just a matter of fine-tuning the way we wanted this to look, and that was just such a wonderful experience how we did that with I was sitting in the supermarket on my phone and gave my opinions, and Christina went and executed them on Photoshop and Illustrator in her home, and it was just so cool the way we were on the same wavelength. Font a little bit different, and has to be a little bit more condensed, and try lowercase instead of uppercase, and so forth. And then eventually you know, instead of a white line in between the title and the tagline, she used a blue line, and it's just, you know, it worked so well until finally, and this is kind of the funniest thing ever, we said, hey, this is good enough, we can do this, is all awesome, and we were just about to put that logo, final version, to bed, until, check it out, Christina said, hey, why don't we go and just stretch out the tagline just a little bit so that the tagline and the main title are essentially on the same end, on the same thing. It's just a tiny, literally like 4 pixels to the right. And I said, you know what, that's so funny, because I wasn't going to say anything, but that's exactly what I would have done to make it just that extra bit perfect. So there we go. Now we have a logo. That's all I wanted to tell you.